live.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Thursday, March 12th, and we are here to do a walkthrough of the latest draft of H727, our data center bill. And we are looking at draft 1.3, right, Maria? Okay. So that's been sent to the committee and it should be posted. I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Scott Campbell from St. John's Bury.
Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2.
Chris Morrow, Windsor, Betty.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Darren Torrey, Washington 2.
And in the room?
Zachary Moss, Community Service at University of Vermont.
Great.
Nathaniel Eisen, freelance journalist.
Super.
Dylan Zwicky, Leonard.
Hedi.
Maria Royal, Legislative Council.
Super.
Rick Bidwer, PUC.
Great. All right. Does everybody have draft 1.3? Alex, would you print a couple copies? I thought I printed it. I can't find it.
I have some.
You do? Oh, great.
Yep.
Okay. I'll take a hard copy if you
Sure.
Yep. Just an update. We heard back informally that House Environment has completed their flyby and probably are not going to be sending us too many recommendations. I don't know, Maria, do you have any further update?
That's pretty much what I heard from Mike O'Grady. This morning they approved the language as it appears in this draft, but that Chair Sheldon might have some other unrelated to water suggestions, but I don't know what they are.
Okay, great. And I asked her to make sure to write to us, so we'll have a letter to look at and like post this testimony. And I don't have that yet, but she knows we're on the clock. So just waiting to hear back from Chair Sheldon. And but it sounds like it's not going to be too much to incorporate, if anything. So, and they looked at 1.3.
Well, the water provisions hadn't changed
That's
at
right.
all. Yep.
Okay, great. So Maria, I know you have color coding and all
I
kinds of
do.
stuff going on. Okay.
Yeah, let me just pull it up here. Yeah, so I have different color coding because everything that was in draft 1.2 was highlighted in yellow, but I left all of that in because I wasn't sure if you had made definitive decisions on any of that.
I think it's really helpful.
But then based on some of your concerns and conversations over the last couple of days, I put in some suggested language again, just for your consideration. And then there were definitely some things I think that even the committee acknowledged were kind of to be determined. So I just highlighted a little bit blue. I didn't highlight the whole section necessarily in blue because when you print it out, you can't read it.
Okay.
It's too dark. So anyway, I learned that in House Judiciary. So that being said, shall we just go through the new provisions?
Yeah.
Okay. So looking for the first.
We're looking for gray and
Gray.
blue, right?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So this is under required contractual provisions, and I am on page 4, subdivision 5 on line 12. There was a question by Representative Campbell about how that reasonable charge was to be calculated. This is for any excess demand. And so I've just added some language in here to be a little bit more specific, that it shall be calculated by kilowatt hour.
So that's for usage, then not demand charge. That's what we're talking
Right.
about.
And if someone has a different proposal or wants to do it
Okay.
differently, this is just, an attempt to clarify
Yeah.
if that works.
That doesn't,
And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't know whether demand charges are something to be worried about, or if there's any. I mean, it's maybe, I don't know. I don't.
they're not saying the.
No, I know what I'm saying, but
Well,
is it something that should be referenced here somehow?
I think you gotta get a utility person.
Yeah.
In here from the meter
I thought you
department.
were.
No, but the particular,
Yeah, no, you're right.
the mechanism of setting demand is that it's on a rolling time clock.
Yeah.
But pulse every 15 minutes.
Okay.
So
So we should, that's carry the utilities on that.
Sorry.
Hang on, just,
in absence of, if we don't have time to get a utility response, I would think that it would be what you may be looking for is they have a given demand, call it 20 megawatts. And if they go to 21, that additional megawatt of demand, you may want an incremental or a discount.
Yeah.
For taking that. So I think
Maybe we leave it alone for now. My only question was around clarifying what it was about. That's all. Is it usage or is it demand charges? That's my question. So, fill in there.
which will be calculated by demand.
Yeah.
And let the utilities 15-minute rolling demand versus what you may be referring to as instantaneous demand. And I don't think that's practical or possible.
I don't still want that statement.
So
Yeah.
Still was looking for GMP. I'm thinking through how this would work in practice, and you may want to strike the new gray in sub 5. Just it does seem like the elements of a large load contract that's negotiated between a utility and a potential data center and then approved by the PUC. You want to have some flexibility, and I just worry about the restrictive nature of this. I mean, demand charges are one thing, the kilowatt hour charge is a different piece, and Craig can jump in here as well. I think you run the risk of being overly prescriptive in this.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Zwicky. You should probably leave this to the these kind of details to the contract negotiations.
So is it better just referring to projected electricity demand? That's okay.
Yeah.
Just like that.
We know what that means.
You know what that means?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
all right, so strike.
Line 14, great.
Okay,
So, subdivision 6, this is, to be determined. I wasn't exactly sure where you left off on the decommissioning requirement, whether that should be a plan that's incorporated into the original contract, or whether that's something that would be dealt with in Act 250.
So this is different than the other language that we have in a different place. This is around the environmental impact, and the equipment and the other language is on facilities.
Well, it's meant to cover the same thing. So this is what, and you can word it however you want, but this would be a contractual provision. So when they're entering into the contract, they need to have a plan for decommissioning. And then when the PUC is reviewing the contract, it would have to be a finding that they have a decommissioning plan.
Okay.
So that provision is still in there.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure.
And it's not a mismatch between those two, because I think the language in the other one says facilities.
And well, let's see, this one says facilities. No, removal of equipment in the event of any.
Any facilities become inactive.
Yeah, okay, so any facility or portion thereof potentially become inactive, and I didn't know, whether to say permanently inactive. There's just a lot of, I was trying to keep it broad enough. But
Mr. Faber?
Can you tell me what you're trying to do here? This is saying that we, in the contract, there's a decommissioning plan. Are you saying that you want a decommissioning plan done by the Act 250 Commission before they come to us and we just say, yeah, there's a decommissioning plan?
This is different. This is a collateral requirement.
This would be something we would do in the course of the contract negotiations. And again, like I explained yesterday, we're not looking at the physical site in a contract negotiation. So the wording of this is troubling to me. If you want to have us ensure that the Act 250 Commission has put in a decommissioning plan, that's one thing. But that's totally different wording than this. This is having us do a decommissioning plan
In the contract.
in the contract without any look at the actual site, the physical site or the construction of that site. We would have no clue as to what's going on there and then have to do a decommissioning. That makes no sense. I'm sorry, but
I don't necessarily read it that way. I read it more as the parties need to come up with their liabilities and rights and obligations pursuant to their contract, however they want to do it, not so much that there's a plan and the PUC then reviews that plan and determines if it's adequate, but that there is some provision in the contract in the event there's decommission. So I'm not sure I read it quite so broad, but if you want to make that clear or not include it at all. And Ellen had a while ago, in terms of Act 250's jurisdiction, she said that, and I'm sorry to actually now, I thought we might have heard my alert before, but she said that decommissioning sometimes comes up at the time of getting an Act 250 permit if it's something for a project like mineral extraction or logging at very high elevations. But in general, it's not part of an Act 250 permit, except that because the permit continues for the life of the development, should a project change and become inactive, then there would be a review to make sure that they decommission pursuant to the Act 250 criteria. So that's my very limited understanding. And that may be sufficient. I just wanted to.
If they're bankrupt at that point, not much can happen.
It seems like what we're trying to do is we're trying to have the parties address the issue of decommissioning. What happens to all of the equipment as you working with here? What happens to all the equipment, not necessarily the building? What happens to all the servers and the stuff that's inside the servers and all of that?
This has to happen. I mean, I feel like this has to happen.
What about, so we did, I'm hearing, I feel like I'm hearing different information. We probably should get an email to the LERB real quick and ask about decommissioning in Act 250. Can you write to them right now? I think that's the one thing we really need to make sure we know about. But what I was wondering was, since we are in the section of the bill that talks about, what's to be in the contract that the PUC is going to review, and I definitely hear everything Greg is saying. Is it that we want to make sure the contract includes enough collateral to mitigate the risk of stranded costs and decommissioning? That seems like something that would belong in a contract. And that's not talking about a decommissioning plan and what we're going to do with the facilities. I definitely have heard that seems to be more of an Act 250 thing. But I think we're talking about, in my mind anyway, there's two different things. There's what actually happens to that building and all the equipment, which I don't know, maybe that's addressed by Act 250, but there's also like the money for it. And so if we're asking them to include collateral sufficient to mitigate the risk of stranded costs and decommissioning, take out all the other
We're still in the
stuff.
section on the contract.
Exactly.
Right, so they should be able to put anything in that contract, including decommissioning, whether it's site related or not, I would think.
Question.
Yeah.
How do we handle decommissioning for Renegade?
They actually went in before we started doing decommissioning plans, but they set up a fund
Who did that?
which they manage.
Mhm.
We approved it, but they manage all the funds. They don't have a traditional decommissioning plan like like, let's say some of the wind projects.
And who does the decommissioning projects for the solar?
We do,
Okay. And so, and this is different
but
because,
that's part of the review of all the environmental impacts in the first place. So we're looking at the whole
that's part of
project.
48.
Yes. So we're taking the place of Act 250 in that case,
Mhm.
right? Because we're looking at the whole project. We're applying all the Act 250 criteria. And we're also
Mhm.
typically they put up a surety bond
Mhm.
based on the cost of salvage, the salvage value of the equipment at the site after 20 years or so, the useful life.
Mhm.
And then we hold on to those bonds.
Okay. Thank you.
Rep Southworth?
What is the proper sequence of events with startup of this? Is it PUC first? Is it Act 250 first?
That's what we talked about yesterday.
I mean, I will just say, working for a regional development corporation and having seen a lot of development projects, I mean, I think projects like this start in multiple different, like big projects like this will probably start in different places. I don't think they do something and then finish.
Parallel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're working on like a stormwater mitigation project in Bellows Falls, and they're trying to get water and other permits, Army Corps of Engineer and Act 250. So they're working on those in tandem at the same time. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I would say I am not necessarily. I don't think it would be helpful to us to prescribe an order.
Right, but I'm just trying to fit this in somewhere that makes sense.
Well, I think we just have to require somebody to do it. So it's either the PUC or the letter. I think it could be.
With the land use review board having jurisdiction over the siting and building of that property, wouldn't it make most sense for them to be the ones looking at that and making sure that that's in place?
I'm still seeing two different. I'm
I
seeing a
can see
place
it
for
both
both.
ways, but
Yeah, I all I need to hear basically is that 250 is going to cover the bulk of the decommissioning in terms of the building and the facility and the site. But I also want to see in the contract that there's money set aside for that. And I think that belongs in the contract. That doesn't feel like a 250 thing to me.
So we want to include the collateral requirements sufficient to mitigate the risk of the stranded costs. And
Decommissioning.
well, so do we want to make sure that collateral requirement is connected to a decommissioning plan? Which is that then not necessarily
If it,
prescribing that to the PUC? But because I think you need the PUC and the LRF both really thinking about that.
Attorney Royals. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, we definitely need to hear back from the LRB about their role in what role the decommissioning plan plays in an Act 50 permit. So maybe that'll put much of this to rest, but I still think there's a part that belongs in the contract having to do with the money. Yeah, Greg.
Just further on this. So typically when we do decommissioning plans for, let's say, large solar, we require them to put up a surety bond.
Mm-hmm.
So that's money.
Yeah.
So if you're asking us to do it and Act 250 to do it, are you asking for both? Or
do you know if the Act 250 process includes the money piece?
I know nothing about it.
See, that's I think that's what we're waiting to hear back. I just want to make sure the money's somewhere.
It should be somewhere, but maybe not both places because then it's double.
Right. if we hear back from the land use review board that that them granting a permit includes a robust decommissioning plan and a surety bond.
So actually, this may be too. I don't think that it is. So there's a decommissioning fund. This is the one that I'm most familiar with, which is at PY. Okay, and so that is for decommissioning the plant. But there are a lot of other impacts that were not considered as a part of that. And we're trying to change federal legislation now to make sure that we do think about those things when a plant is sited and then decommissioned. And so,
What kinds of things?
I mean, community impact. So, yeah, I mean, these
Like
play
lost of jobs and property taxes or more?
a nuclear power plant, actually, unlike a data center, provides a lot of very high paid jobs, which is not the case for a data center. Both of them will provide property tax relief, which communities will come to rely on. So,
Have we looked at where data centers exist now? And if there's decommissioning involved with the permitting of them and how that is overseen?
so I have not. I don't know if our attorney has or any of our stakeholders, but we're all running on this and, examining policy as it's emerging in all these different states. So, Madam Chair, I have an email into the LURB.
Yeah.
I just wonder what is the most simple thing we could do, knowing that we absolutely are working on this with our colleagues in the Senate.
And this is also a new type of development that we haven't had before.
Why don't we just move on? Let's just flag it for now and unless somebody sees, I'd suggested that it just say mitigate the risk of stranded costs and decommissioning. To me, that implies they've got collateral.
Oh, that sounds, yeah.
Okay, so that was.
I think that, and that made me find a flag the issue. The one thing that, just occurred to me is, and I'm now, responding to something that Faber had said. So the collateral requirement for stranded costs, I think that was contemplating if the electric utility invests in the infrastructure.
Right.
Right. So the utility is not on the hook, nor are other ratepayers. If there's decommissioning, the utility isn't necessarily on the hook for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost a separate. So I don't think the utility necessarily has a vested interest in making sure that the data center
Gets
like
decommissioned.
the utility, who would hold that collateral or surety bond, right? Because it's,
You say, wouldn't it?
well, that gets to the,
Well, that's a different issue then. Then we're doing a decommissioning plan. But again, we haven't commissioned anything in the first place. This is purely looking at a contract, like Maria's saying, a contract between the utility and the data center, the electrons flowing between the hooks. So we're not looking at commissioning a physical site here. It says that has nothing to do with the utility. So this isn't the right place for it, for a decommissioning plan. I still maintain that should be with the entity that's reviewing the site in the first place, which would be Act 250 in this instance. But you need to check with Act 250 as to what they do. I think about this, and what would prevent someone from buying a large warehouse, an existing warehouse, and just putting servers in it? What kind of decommissioning would be involved there, or commissioning, frankly? I just don't know.
Well, getting rid of the servers at the end of their life or past the end of their life.
Maybe, but
If the owner is just drops keys on the desk of the local town clerk and says, "I'm gone."
Right, but
who's on the hook to clean it up?
Exactly. And what does Act 250 do about that now with other warehouse uses?
Yeah.
Those are hazardous stuff in all kinds of warehouses, right? So what are they doing right now? I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that simple, right? I mean,
It may not be, it may be a
I mean,
whole
you'll have to
new
have water
building.
infrastructure.
You
Well,
could,
I mean, maybe you're reusing a building, but I mean, these are pretty big buildings. You need some sort of cooling, right? I mean,
I don't know. Depends on the
presumably
size.
a utility, yes,
You already have 3 of them, right?
they're not 20 megawatts, right?
I don't,
Yeah, I
small.
think
They're
I think they're
small.
like 1 megawatt.
Right,
Right.
very
So I
small.
think we're talking about something that's bigger.
well, this is every data center,
And
right?
this is 20 megawatts and up.
Okay, so I don't know, I just don't know enough about the Act 250 process to really make a
Maria's gonna
recommendation.
say,
Let's hear from Maria.
I
and then-
never save you, but, maybe one thought, unless we get a definitive answer and you feel comfortable, because the department is not in the room right now, they won't mind my requesting them to work with the land use review board, just consult with and come back with a recommendation
next year.
January of next year.
That sounds amazing.
December of next, whether there is, this is a gap, whether there should be some kind of accounting for decommissioning, whether it's through the department or C or.
So task the department with coming back in December with a recommendation on how we handle decommissioning.
I think
Since
so.
we seem to have stumbled into a pending some sort of definitive, really
Right,
reassuring response from the land reviews board, we're in a gray area.
Yeah.
And we cannot afford a gray area here. So I think that's a great idea. Yay, Maria.
And maybe it'll get addressed in the Senate in the meantime, but at least you'll have the fallback that
Okay,
if it's not. You're
so
gonna
can you
get-
add that?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you, Maria.
Thanks, Maria.
Sure. So then, at the bottom of page 4, this was the issue about demand side management. And I think there was a request, instead of using the general phrase harnessing load flexibility, to be a little bit more specific about what that means.
Yep.
So, demand side management operational measures for the purpose of maintaining grid stability and efficiency, including demand response and flexible load management practices such as load shifting, peak shaving, and the use of distributed energy resources. So this gets to everything. Demand response, as I understand it, tends to be more reactive. If there's a critical event in the grid and an industrial user has to immediately get off or asked to move their load to on-site generation or battery, that can be possible. Whereas flexible load management tends to be more proactive, just about general business practices, not maybe trying to reduce consumption during peak periods. Same kind of shifting to on-site consumption, on-site generation or storage to address the grid supply. Anyway, I think these are pretty familiar terms to those in the industry.
Great. Everybody okay with that?
Great.
All right. Quick break. We always ask people who join us to introduce themselves. So I think we have some members of the Youth Climate Lobby who are in the State House today, who came to listen to our discussion of the data center bill. So do you guys want to say just a quick hi?
Hi, I'm Simon and I'm from U32.
Great. Simon, U32.
Karen, also from U32.
Super.
Lotta, me too.
Great.
Naturally well from you.
I'm Justin from U52.
All right.
Rowan also from U52.
Great. Thanks for being here. Everybody else already went. Okay. Back to the bill. I do want to give everybody a heads up. I do have to be down in approps at 2 to walk through 740.
Great. So turning to page 6, that's where I highlighted some of those subdivisions. I think you hadn't decided yet. For example, line 6 on page 6. Some of these overlap with the Act 250 criteria, whether you wanted to keep those in here. These are the findings that the PUC needs to make before approving a contract. So I just flagged that one. At a minimum, I think you did say though, lines 12 and 13, you wanted to include a reference to the state's greenhouse gas emission reduction requirements, I think. So as far as I know, that's still on the table. And then I'll just go through the other ones that are flagged, page 7. will not have an adverse effect on any segment of the waters of the state that have been designated as outstanding resource waters. Also on line 7, this is the Federal Clean Air Act. In the event that you do keep it in, I just had some suggested language having to do with the potential amendments to that federal act.
So that's backdating.
Yeah.
So that we're pegging the air quality standards to pre-Trump. In case they
January 1st,
change.
2026, and I think there hadn't been any changes.
Okay, but if they roll back or shift or change,
Right.
we've pegged to
You've
the
pegged to that,
previous clean air
And
standard.
then you've also said, except to the extent such requirements are inconsistent with any other applicable state law or rule.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
state level want to change it, so line 11, again, the harvesting procedures, whether this is all part of Act 250, same thing. Line 14, the energy efficiency requirements, commercial building energy standards. And then 18, decommissioning. We're going to have another proposal for that. So then the other provision on page 8, there's new language, line 3, a new subsection F. And this is getting at, I think, clarifying that a data center could potentially petition the PUC to become a self-managed utility, and go through that process. So the way it reads is this section, so the whole section of this bill shall not be construed to limit or infringe upon, I don't know if right is the right word, actually, maybe the ability of a data center to petition the PUC for a certificate of public good to own and operate its own public service company pursuant to Section 231 and subject to limited regulation appropriate to its function. The term, what is it? SMU, self-managed utility, isn't actually used in the statutes. So this was taken from the Global Foundries order, the way the PUC described what it was, a public service company that, typically, as in that case, a wholly owned subsidiary that basically becomes the power company specifically for the data center.
I have a question. So before we added this, the bill was just silent on it. And any data center could petition to do this anyway, right? I'm just wondering if we need this.
I'm not sure. I didn't know if there was some confusion about that or, I don't know. I don't know if you've heard anyone suggest that they couldn't, or if you wanted to clarify or just remain silent. I don't know.
I don't think we heard they couldn't.
Okay.
I think we talked a lot about whether that contract process would be as transparent, and we decided that it would be. Right?
Yeah, I think there was, I may be mistaken, but I think there may have been testimony asking us to not about this.
Oh, that's right.
And that actually fits problematic to me. So I'd like to just be, I don't think they have to be a self-managed utility, but I do think you need to leave that option on the table. If the language is not necessary in order for that to be considered, then, great.
So I feel kind of neutral about it, right? Like I don't know right now that we want to prohibit it. I'm not sure we want to specifically call it out.
And encourage it.
Yeah.
So I guess if I were reading it, I wouldn't necessarily presume based on the language that they could not pursue this process. So I don't necessarily think you need to clarify. And what Global Foundries did, nothing in Vermont law says that you can become a self-managed utility. It's something that they applied for, and it was a long proceeding that worked it out. So, there was no specific authorization to do that. They just took, use the CPG process for doing business as an electric company, and that all worked. So I don't necessarily think you need it.
All right. I think we should strike it then.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, I haven't even been scrolling. I'm now gonna go page 10, that's just a technical change. Typically, we don't refer to a specific entity in statute, which has become on the line. I'm just referring to its underlying statutory authorized legislation under the consultation.
I have a question on page 10.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't resolve, or maybe I didn't resolve. I was concerned about pegging our PFAS water quality standards to the EPA in case something changes there. And I'm not sure we fixed or changed that.
Oh, underwater?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so I know this was a long conversation we had with O'Grady, and this is probably what the Environment Committee is also looking at, but I think that the way the PFAS language is worded here, it pegs it specifically to the standards at the federal EPA, and just like Clean Air Act, I'm concerned that if that changes or gets weakened, then we'll be holding our data centers to weaker water standards, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
So,
Let me check with Mike
okay.
about that. I don't know if he tried to incorporate the exact language in here,
Oh, right, as opposed to reference.
as opposed to referencing the statute,
Right.
but I'm not sure, so I'll double check with him.
Yeah, I had that marked as a,
So this
we
is
talked
different
about-
than Clean Air, which is referenced by statute.
it is, and I think that we didn't know whether to backdate this as well or what. But there was also the question of the EPA tests for 40 specific PFAS. And there could be broader testing you could do that would test for a wider range of compounds. So I think I just have some water questions.
Okay.
This was what we asked the Environment Committee to look at,
They were looking at
water.
water. So we just need to hear back from them, but I just want to flag that as,
Okay.
to my mind, that's still kind of unresolved.
Okay. So then, that's just a technical change on page 13, line 6. I think then that brings us to, okay, so two things. So on page 15, this was an issue that Chair Shelton brought up. This is the application. She was concerned about what if an existing data center that's in operation on the effective date, decided to expand and become, if it were capable of becoming a larger capacity, data center, she wanted to make sure that they weren't exempted from these new laws. So I think that's what that language is intended to do. Because right now the law applies to any data center that's operational for.
So one of our
requirements apply-
existing three.
Right. The law applies to any data center not operational on the effective date, which are any large data centers, because we don't have any. But it doesn't address the data centers that currently exist, even though they don't meet the 20 megawatts. Her concern was, well, what if they wanted to expand their operational? So anyway,
Press that.
that was her.
Amy mentioned this to me yesterday. I'm glad she thought of it. Actually, I don't see why we would not put that in.
Thanks.
And then in the, oh, sorry.
But I have a question about that. This goes back to our very first walkthrough of the bill, which now seems like 5 years ago. But can Rep. Sebeli, can you remind me, why did we pick 20? Why did we pick 20 megawatts? I know there's a reason. I can't remember it.
So this is a moving target, working with Ledge Council and looking at, trying to see what is happening across the country. And looking at the range of sizes. I don't know if Maria,
Yeah,
the moratorium bill is for 100 megawatts. So it's only for data centers that are larger than this. For 100.
This is significantly smaller
But
than the
significant
Senate's proposed
moratorium,
moratorium.
but it's significantly larger than the data centers that Mr. Faber referenced that we have in the state already.
And I'll just mention, it's been a while since I've looked at kind of the other jurisdictions. I do know that there is a range. Some are as low as 20 megawatts. I think Oregon maybe. Some are 50, some are 75, some are 100. So there are
a bunch of states that are looking at like 10 or.
I'm not aware of anything
Okay.
lower than 20.
Great.
For this type of regulation, but I can double check that.
Okay, and we took testimony on I was trying to picture things on the physical size of a 20 megawatt.
How big is the warehouse?
Yeah,
Like 10,000 square feet.
right.
And it's usually on at least 10 acres of land. I think it was like 10 to 40 acres of land on average.
So compared to a Walmart superstore. I'm not very good at math. I have no idea how that compares to a Walmart superstore.
No, 10,000 square feet is like,
It's not that big.
no, the bookstore is 20,000 square.
Excellent, great. That I can picture.
Yeah,
All right. But yeah, the bookstore's 20,000.
yeah.
All right,
They built that building. Yeah, so 10,000 is not that much.
great.
Which bookstore? Your
Berkshire Bookstore.
That's 20,000.
It's multiple
It's big.
levels, so
Yeah.
it's
Multiple, right, okay,
confusing.
Yeah, that's helpful then.
A lot of servers.
Yeah. Okay,
So the
Make one.
and then the report.
just a couple of suggested changes from the PUC and GMP about the report, changing the date, the due date. From December of this year to January 15th next year. And then striking some of the specific considerations. And just leaving it more open-ended. That is it.
Okay. So we are waiting to hear back from the land use review board. We're waiting
specifically on decommissioning.
specifically on decommissioning. We're waiting to hear back from
Chair Sheldon.
Chair Sheldon on water, and I'm going to write to her.
Good question.
Okay, we have an answer.
Maybe you do. Going back to the 20 megawatt. And when we think about other large loads like crypto, for instance, do you have a sense of the size of those
For crypto,
Yeah.
data
mining?
mining.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think AI is definitely requires the most computing power by far, but I'll find out.
Bitcoin.
For crypto mining, I think, yeah.
We have an answer from the LURB, and this definitely brings us back to your elegant solution, Maria. Thanks for reaching out. I'm booked for the rest of the day. With that said, Act 250 does not typically involve decommissioning per se, as our permits generally do not expire. However, we do include reclamation/rehabilitation plans and provisions on permits within set term limits, i.e. gravel pits, waste facilities, and logging above 2,500 feet. You may want to connect with the PUC. So we're circling around. I do have some time tomorrow.
So yeah, I definitely think Maria has given us a
Yeah.
great solution for this, for our colleagues in the Senate. to
Yeah.
concern.
Because it sounds like it is falling into a gap then. If great. So let's strike. So are we gonna leave any of the decommissioning references in, or are we gonna take all of those out and
Maybe
then
take it out
just
and then add a new provision.
with a report?
Yeah.
Okay, let me connect with Chair Sheldon really quick and see what her timeline is.
I heard it. Didn't hear from her, so.
I specifically asked her, I
Put it in
told her we
writing.
needed something in writing, yeah. Okay, All right. So next steps, let's see. We've got, floor at 3:30. I've got approps at 2. We've heard back from the LURB. We have a solution for the decommissioning. We're really just waiting to hear from environment. And then, we've got our committee discussion and vote scheduled tomorrow at 1. But I wonder about, are you free earlier in the day? I'm wondering, is there any, there's no reason, I don't think, guys, for us to wait until 1 because we're voting on the committee bill at,
What's the calendar tomorrow now?
what's on the floor? I mean, 1 is certainly safe. Yeah.
Can Greg give us a little more detail of the decommissioning for Rygate? What exactly is you said they issue bonds?
No, typically in a decommissioning plan, we get a surety bond. However, Rygate is so old that they just basically set up their own decommissioning account that they manage. It's very unusual. I don't think anyone else does it that way. And they have money sitting in an account to cover decommissioning, supposedly. They do. It's very unusual.
Yeah, who do they report to then?
Nobody, unless we can ask them how much they have in there. And you guys have asked them when Rygate comes up periodically. I forget the last time it came up for their renewal. But yes, that's how it's handled, which is very unusual. That's the only one like that. Typically, we get a surety bond. So for a large solar built today, we would get a surety bond and they would estimate the salvage value 20 years out. And that surety bond would cover the removal of all the equipment minus the salvage value and the restoration of this site to pretty much what we're looking for, restoration of the site. Yeah.
And the state holds that?
Yeah, we hold it. We yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So even if they went defunct, we'd still be able to get.
We would have the surety bond. Yeah, we would have the money. So we would have to contract with somebody. It's never happened,
Right.
But we would contract with someone to do all that work.
Okay.
Take out the panels that were
Right.
and things like that. Hasn't happened, but that's how we handle it.
So we could sort of do that same type of thing for data center.
Absolutely. However, the problem is we're not reviewing those sites to begin with, so it creates this sort of that's why we're in this gray area.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're not looking at what's going in, so it's hard to figure out what's going to come out. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Okay.
that's what I was hoping that Act 250 could do it, but if you have a study, maybe we'll come to some sort of resolution.
Rep Southworth?
So this is all new. And we're trying to meld it in with an existing. Should we be looking at it as we're starting fresh, as these are the criteria that we want? And then, sorry, Mr. Favors, but we need to figure out where it fits in because it sounds like it fits into licensing.
Sounds like it fits in what?
Licensing.
Hmm.
Because this is all new and this,
Licensing's not in here, is it?
it's not.
I don't know what you mean.
You mean if they were to have renewables on site and be like a power generator and
Yeah,
get a
I-
CPG?
just, they're gonna be applying for certificate of public good possibly, or they're gonna be applying through different entities in order to be able to construct and operate in this state. So at some point, we have to figure out what is the best path where they are held accountable through that process.
They're not required to get a CPJ. They are required to have a finding of a contract.
Correct. But if they go into wanting to be a managed utility, they have to be a CPG. But this is all new and we're trying to fit it into what's existing. We're finding that it's not fitting into the existing.
Well, I feel like it's close though. I mean, I feel like the construct we landed on was 250 for the siding and the 250 and A&R for the siding, the environmental air packs, the sound, the air, the water. So, but I feel like it fits in there 90% of the way. And then we've got the idea of the large load contract that
I guess
PUC
that's
will
where I'm saying
review.
that I think it fits more into the contract. I use licensing, but contract.
You're talking about decommissioning in
Yeah.
particular.
I think it,
I thought you were talking about the entire deal.
well, it's all new.
Yeah.
So trying to find where it fits by comparing it to the existing, I think is difficult.
I agree, but I also think that Maria's suggestion is a great response to your concern and yours. I mean, I think it gets us, I think it does what you're saying, like, let's think about this with fresh eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Think
That
about
is the
it, think with
gappiest.
fresh eyes. That's not actually.
Because
think
the
with fresh brains.
interesting thing about the journey of this bill was that we started out by saying, okay, if we're concerned that a moratorium is going to draw a lot of very negative legal challenges that could set us back, and we want to be proactively regulatory and make sure that we've looked around every corner. I feel like we've looked around every corner and we have discovered the gaps that we were worried about finding, and decommissioning is definitely one of them.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of good about where we're winding up. I am anxious to hear back from the Environment Committee. So would you guys be comfortable with, I need to go, so you guys can keep talking and I can go, or we could adjourn. And we could keep an eye on the agenda. Or I can send out a group text. Like if we hear back from Amy and we can come back here in half an hour and keep talking, we can do that. If not, it's tomorrow morning.
So unless I agree with you, I think we have done what we need to do, with the exception of knowing that there's going to be a lot of work that we heard, a lot of stakeholders that will take place in the Senate, which I think is appropriate. I think we're pretty close to done here. And so I would not actually be comfortable continuing this conversation without some sense of what you're hopeful of,
Okay.
do.
Then why don't we adjourn for the day and or the chime of the gong? If we hear back, if we can come back up for floor.
So we'll get a
Okay.
text if you hear.
You'll get a text. Yeah.
Great.
All right. We can go up.